Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a if you like this, I think you should try this video. So this is a concept that I've done in the past. I think I've done it a few times. I can link potentially a couple of examples. So it's not a new concept, but it's not one that I've done in a little while. So I thought it was time to give it another go, give it another try, give a few more recommendations. And I've tried to pick, a popular one with a book that is potentially slightly less popular, and obviously it can go both ways. So we will start off with one of my favourites, one of my personal favourites, and that is the Daevabad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. First book being The City of Brass, and this is one of my all-time favourite trilogies. I adore it. I just love this trilogy so much. It is Middle Eastern inspired, Arabian Nights sort of inspired fantasy world series. We're following a main character, Nari, who in the first book awakens a jinn and then suddenly finds herself in the city of Daevabad, discovering that she actually has some of these magical powers and is potentially a long lost heir. And it's all the politics at play within this world with the jinn and the figuring out everything that's going on there with the powers and Nari's position within it, the relationships, and it's a multi-perspective story as well, with other characters thrown in. I just adore this. It's so well paced, so well done. Now, I would say that if you have enjoyed this and you're after something that's going to scratch a similar itch, particularly in terms of the setting and the themes within that setting, so the Arabian Nights vibe, the jinn, that sort of magic, then I would recommend reading The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. So this is the first book in the Sansi trilogy. The first two books are out. I've read books 1 and book 2 and I've enjoyed both of them relatively equally. Oh, here comes emergency services outside. This one, once again, has those themes and the way that the Arabian Nights tales are interwoven through it. I really thoroughly enjoy that desert setting. We again have a cast of characters where one of them is called Luli, who is the night thief and she is the midnight merchant. So she trades in jinn artifacts with her jinn bodyguard, because in this world the humans and the jinn are at war with each other. And at the beginning of the book she gets tasked by the king of this realm to find an artifact, a magic lamp. It was either that or be put to death, because what she trades in is illegal. And then we're also following one of the sultan's sons as they go off on this quest together. And I would just really, again, enjoy the dynamics between the characters, the magic. I think in both of these, the authors handle a very minor subplot of romance quite well, that you're just left waiting, and hopefully by book 3 you might get something. I know in book 3, I know in this we do get delivery, but in this one I'm still waiting for if anything's going to happen, but I think there might be. So I think they handle those elements really well. And just in general, the relationships between the characters, whether they're romantic or friendship or familial. So would highly recommend these. I think if you're after something like The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, which is a cozy fantasy romance which is more focused around the romantic plotline, and it just happens to be set within a fantastical world, then I would recommend Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher, which once again is a cozy fantasy romance, with the romance being the core part of the plot, but it does have a fantasy backdrop. But I wouldn't necessarily put this in the same world concept of, oh no, I've got a play, I've got all these noises. I wouldn't put this in the same category as a fantasy romance in terms of the KU fantasy romances, because it is more on that cozy side. So The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, we're following Heart and Mercy runs a funeral service, and that's where those two meet when Heart comes in with a body, because of the fantastical events that are going on in this world, and they just don't get along, but then they start sending notes back and forth. It's just it's quite cute. And then the dynamic between the two characters, that is the element that keeps you reading. The same can be said for Paladin's Grace, where we're following our main character Stefan, who is a paladin, but his god has died, so he is this bereft paladin and is struggling to recover from that. Him and his friends, other paladins, struggling to recover. He stumbles upon and meets Grace, who is a perfumer, and it is their dynamic I do think the fantasy elements in this are intriguing. Like, I am interested to see more of this world, and I do intend to continue on reading in this series. I haven't actually continued on with the Heart and Mercy series, duology maybe, but yeah, things end up going a little bit awry for them with events, sort of like a murder mystery events that are going on, and there are these heads appearing at random. So in both of them there are these events going on that are wider and more fantastical, but it is the romance that is what's drawing along the plot. So would recommend. In a completely different sphere, I think that and I think both of these authors are now getting quite popular. Well, one of them's very popular and one of them I think is on the rise, particularly with his new series that he's writing. But I would say that if you like Brandon Sanderson, like everyone knows who Brandon Sanderson is, a very prolific fantasy writer who has written a variety of series, most of them focused within the Cosmo, which is his wider world. This book being The Way of Kings, which is the first book in the Stormlight Archive, which are very much epic fantasy tales. They sort of have a good versus evil element within them, but there is greyness in everybody because we are human, and the magic in them is generally quite scientific, and they're all sort of linked and there's Easter eggs between them all, but very expertly done. And the writing style, I'd say, is quite easy to read. His books are generally quite long and detailed, and there are twists and turns that you don't see coming, but in terms of the way that the writing is done, it's quite structured. And so I would say that if you enjoy that writing style, then I think you would probably like James Islington, that I think his books would also work for you in the way that he constructs his stories. Is, I think, got some similarities to it where they're quite methodical potentially, but there are definitely twists. So I have read both The Will of the Many and his Lycanius trilogy. The Lycanius trilogy is complete. This one, the second book, is coming out in November, and I'm really excited to read that one. But this one, we're following a main character, Viz, who is an orphan, and at the beginning of the book he gets adopted by one of these a highbrow elite person within society, because he wants Viz to infiltrate one of the military schools to find out what has happened to his brother and the events that are going on within the school. And it is set in a world which is Roman inspired and has a hierarchy. So everyone seeds their will up, which is sort of like the magic within the world. So you have the bottom of society, which they seed their will and they have none of their own, and they're sort of shells of humans, all the way up to the ruler, who is of the first level, and he doesn't seed any will but just receives it from everyone, and that is what gives him his power. Loved the twists, turns, the school setting, the magic, the weaving of everything, and very excited to continue on with this. So I think if you are after that intricacy with like the way that the story's been crafted that Brandon Sanderson also has, then you would enjoy this. Two series that I have been reading this year that I think complement each other, and it has I have compared them, and other people have compared them, and that would be Throne of Glass series and the Lady of Darkness series. So Throne of Glass, quite a popular one by Sarah J Maas, which I have been rereading this year, and I'm currently just finishing up the final book, is a older, well, I mean, not even that old, it's probably like 10 years old, fantasy romance series, which I think has a really great fantasy plot within it, following a main character, Selena Sardothian, who is an assassin, and at the first book she gets taken out of prison to take part in these trials to become the king's champion. But there is so much more to it than that. So much more. I'm like, how did it even start there? But yeah, that is that big cast of characters, very strong fantastical elements, and it is, I guess, one of the grounding blocks for like the fantasy romance genre today. And Lady of Darkness has definitely pulled from Sarah J Maas, and not just the Throne of Glass series. I think there's elements from her other series, like the Akatar series, within this, but this first book we're following Scarlet, who is an assassin, so similar plot points there in the main character, but she has taken a break from assassinating people because of some events that you discover as you move through the book. But the Assassin Lord is wanting to bring her back into the fold and has given her a task that she cannot refuse, because it is to do with the person that murdered her mother and unearthing the truth behind all of that. So she is easing back into things, and meeting some potential love interests as we go through. There's the Prince of the World and dynamics there. There are children that are beginning to disappear, and you know that there is a wider sort of fae world out there with magic. I think if you have enjoyed Throne of Glass and you're wanting something that's going to give you a similar feeling, then this would deliver that it has a similar vibe to it. I don't think it's quite as strong, because it would be very hard to be as strong as Throne of Glass, but it definitely gives the same vibes. Now, I have one which I think is a little bit different, but because it's recommending a series by the same author. So I think if you have enjoyed the Shadowhunter books, which a lot of us have, I remember reading them like as they came, well, not as they came out, because when I started reading them, there was quite a few of them out. It was like, when I started reading them, the 6th and final book in the Mortal Instruments was coming out to set the scene. So a lot of us have read the Shadowhunter books. There's a lot of them. I feel like if I was going out, it would be a little bit overwhelming. But I have enjoyed them. And as such, I would recommend, if you have enjoyed the Shadowhunter books, to read Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, which is her adult series that she's been working on, because it doesn't have the like dauntiness of all of those books within Shadowhunter world, which I don't know if I would enjoy them if I read them now, because there's so many of them and things have evolved. My tastes have changed since then when I read them over 10 years ago. But Cassandra Clare has improved, I'd say, as a writer as well. And in this, you have some of the elements that you get within Shadowhunters, in the way that she crafts her characters and her plots, and she builds tension and angst so well, that she has such a great craft of building throughout the book and sort of delivering you something, but then pulling it away. She does it so well. So I'd say that if you enjoyed the way those dynamics are written within the Shadowhunter books, not in terms of the plotting, I don't think the plots are the same at all between them, because they are distinctly different, but the way that she crafts characters, tension, plot structure, I think there are similarities. And if you enjoyed those when you were younger, you would enjoy this now as an adult. And in this, we're following a main character, Kel, who is the sword catcher for the prince within this world, which means that he stands in for the prince in events where they think that his life is potentially at risk, and they have been brought up together. But Kel is not from the nobles, or he's not the elite, he is just an orphan, but has now been brought up within this world for a very long time. And then we also follow Lynn, who comes from a people that have magic. She wants to be a healer within this world, and at some point her path crosses with both Kel and the Crown Prince. And there's a lot of politics at play within this world with the characters, as well as they learn what's going on both within their country and outside of it. And I had a great time. Would strongly recommend. It's not the fastest of paces, but I was hooked all the way through. And then finally, another bit of a throwback is if you enjoyed reading about vampires growing up, like if you enjoyed the Twilight books, if you enjoyed vampires as a theme, as a genre within fantasy, having that sort of element, then I think you should be reading the Crowns of Nyaxia series, the first book being Serpent and the Wings of Night, because this is vampires made modern. And I think there have been a few other like vampire books that have come out in recent years. This one in this series is my favourite. I think it does vampires really well and slightly differently. Unlike Twilight, which is set in our world, this is a fully fantastical world. And this book, we have a set of trials. We're following Araya, who is a human amongst vampires and is always feeling like she is inferior to them. And there are these sets of trials, and whoever wins them can ask a boon from the goddess Nyaxia, who rules the vampires. And her idea for Araya is that she is going to ask her to become a vampire. But things might go awry, and there might be a romantic interest within this who is also part of the trials. I mean, I do enjoy trials as a theme, which definitely not in Twilight, but I do think trials definitely add an edge of drama as you're experiencing these events with the characters and them trying to succeed and hopefully not die. But just if you enjoy vampires, then try some of these vampires. So there we go. There are a few. If you like this, then I think you should try this recommendations. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you agree with some of my comparisons, or if you have read one and then not liked the other one, and then my recommendation has not quite worked, and if you have any recommendations for me. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye.